Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse 29. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Yahweh. First of all, I want to give all praise and glory to our Heavenly Father Yahweh in the name of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi. Mercy and blessings and grace be abound unto the brothers and sisters throughout the four corners of the earth that are believing in the name of Yahawashi according to the will of the Heavenly Father, that we shall call upon His name in order for us to be saved. And the Lord, Yahweh, has written together a beautiful story that we are able to decipher the last days, as it is written in the book of Daniel. Knowledge shall increase and many shall run to and fro, but the wise shall understand. Alright, so meaning to do this lesson since earlier this week when I saw this post. This is actually from Vocab's page. It's like on the community page where, you know, they write to their followers, and it looks like it was a guy by the name of, I think, Adam Malone. In fact, is it Adam Malone? Let me go back up and see. Adam Coleman. Okay, so Vocab Malone and this guy Adam Coleman, who's a co-author of this post. This is a blog post on his YouTube page, and basically, as you know, he refers to himself as a urban apologetics, meaning that he reaches out to the people that would be in urban centers, just as it was back in the ancient world, which would be our people. And today, those people primarily would be known as Black, Latino, and Native Americans. Of course, we have always acknowledged, at least among us brethren, that there are other people that would not be considered Black, Latino, or Native American that would be indeed Israelites, who will also need to hear the gospel and to understand, you know, the lies that have been taught, you know, in this current world. As we know, Satan has a grip on this planet. This is his age in which he's ruling, and he's doing it through, you know, how the Most High set it up in the last days, that the children of Edom, right, would be ruling before the coming of Yahawashi HaMashiach. And with that, they have used the tool of deception in order to rule. And the tool of deception has been primarily been most effective upon the children of Israel that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and that have been, you know, given a lot of lies through many false doctrines, and you know, the rise and advent of what is known in the world as white supremacy, like we call Edomite supremacy, over the last 500 years has, you know, done a number, not only on our people, but on all the other nations. But the other nations was not given the gospel that they would be able to get out of, you know, the confusion that has been given to them, you know, by Esau, but that was given to the children of Israel, the scattered elect. So what we're going to do, I'm going to read this post, which was, you know, very offensive, considering that we know that this guy doesn't care about our people. So this is what he's writing. He says, for people of African descent, okay, which, see, he's doing all these things on purpose because he doesn't want to acknowledge at all in any of this whole thing that we're Israelites. Okay, so there's no such thing as an African. Okay, the word Africa, or the place called Africa, was only a province that the Romans named after defeating the Carthaginians, and it became a province in the northern part of Africa, in modern day pretty much Tunisia, or you could say even parts of Libya. Okay, was referred to that territory, but no group of people in the Bible were called African. Okay, there's no such thing as an African, there's no such thing as an American, and really there's really no such thing as a Latino or Native American. It's just these are words that are used in today's terms, and he uses these particular terms to try and confuse the people. But we're gonna go ahead and, you know, work through this anyway, as he's using some of these words, as you can tell how he wrote these things to try and seem like he cares. Now, he says here, the thirst for lost identity often harbors with its side effects. Now, who took the identities from the people? Because last I checked, you're the one who's giving us terms that the oppressor gave us. Okay, and we know, and you know, that there's something called biblical nationality. If you're someone who studies the Bible, you know that the only people that really exist are those nations. Anything else is just a sign of the times and the culture that we're in, and a lot of times those are names are given by the people who conquered. When our people, when the children of Israel rise and conquer the world, all right, according to prophecy of the Lord, then everybody will be given back their original, nationality and identity. Okay, so he knows and understands that identity is a very key part. In fact, wasn't meaning to bring this out, but since he, brought up the identity issue, we're going to go into this. Okay, so this is Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 3. The ox knoweth his owner, and his ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Okay, so our people don't even consider what nation that they're in. And here it is that brothers are trying to wake up our people to the knowledge of why we're in the condition we're in, and show them that our forefathers and ourselves, that we had fallen away and sinned against the Lord, and that's the reason why we're under, men, right, that are against us, like Vocab Malone, okay, who do not have sincerity in themselves towards us, okay. And the reason why you got people also of our nation following him is because of this complex that they believe that the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, is their master, and they do not realize who their master really is. Okay, and that's one of the issues with the identity crisis, because the master or Lord is the one who determines really the identity and purpose of who their owner. The owner is the one who determines that. If you have purchased a vehicle, you can call that vehicle whatever you want. You can call your home whatever you want. You can call an animal that you purchase whatever you want, and you can treat that animal how you see fit. Okay, and this is what's happening, is that we are likened unto sheep, and right now we're in the hands, all right, of wolves, of people that do not care about the state of our nation, about our identity, all right, about feeding us the right things in order to nourish us, to put us in pastures, a green field that we may be able to be filled. Okay, and that's the reason why we are seeking after the great shepherd, Yahawashi, who laid down his life for the sheep, not men like this, who are only there to try and, steal, kill, and destroy. Okay, they're hirelings, and even much so, they're hirelings, for Satan, okay, to destroy the flock. But the flock is going to not be confounded. The true flock of the Lord is going to hear his voice, and they're going to basically call you out for being a liar, just like we said earlier, of course, in Deuteronomy 33 and 29. All right, now as we go on, it says, in the shedding of what is seen as European, Christianity is often considered to be on the wrong side of the ledger. And you're sure right, they are. And we're going to prove it, man. We're going to go into the reason why our people are running away from Christianity, okay? On what is known as modern day Christianity, not the true Christianity that would have been found in the Bible, in the book of Acts, the Gospels, the epistles, the ones that we were supposed to follow, not y'all's understanding. It says the same cannot often be said for men and women of first peoples, okay, which is so-called Native Americans. That first peoples is a term that's also used in Canada, all right, so meaning the first people that settled the land where never mankind dwelt, and or Hispanic Latino descent seeking spirituality, okay, and those are the ones who descend, from the people that were taken on slave trips from, West and Central Africa to the Americas, from their father's side, their lineage, and then also the natives likewise on their father's side, okay, because we do know that many of that there are a lot of people who do descend, from the Spaniards, right, the Spaniard Edomites that conquered Latin America, and these same type of people, they also push forth the same, madness upon our people that are in these lands as well, okay, keeping them confused, keeping them worshiping, an image, all right, of the oppressor, and believing in a false religion that keeps them exploited and keeps them in poverty and keeps them under the curses, okay, which is the whole intention of these false teachers. It says this is a burgeoning problem in the community. It says many people are coming to the erroneous conclusion that Christianity is the white man's religion. Okay, now the version that you gave is the white man's religion, and we're gonna show it. We're gonna show that the version that you gave, all right, your forefathers gave to the same groups of people you named, all right, the so-called African descended people that were brought on slave ships, the so-called First Peoples or Native Americans, and the so-called Hispanic and Latinos. You are the same people that created the Christianity that we've received, okay, and the one that has bugged our people out. And so that version of Christianity is indeed Esau's religion. Okay, let's just call it what it is. It's the E-man's religion. Okay, it's Esau's version, right, based on false doctrine that he gave to the masses over here. That means there is an inherent incompatibility between being black or brown, which are, again, bywords. You see, all these things you're right, and you just prove us right. You prove us right every sentence. Black or brown and being Christian. Yeah, because it's impossible to be an Israelite trying to follow the Lord and still believing in Esau's religion. Okay? In Serapis Christus. You know? That's basically what you want us to believe in. You want us to believe in these transformed versions of Greco-Roman gods. Even with your Catholicism, Catholicism is polytheistic, you know, which is heavily synchronized to the religion of the Greek mythology. Okay? And that's what you gave the people. You didn't give them the actual true living word. You didn't give them the Torah, the Tanakh, the true gospel. You gave the opposite of that. You gave us bad news, not good news. And people are running away in these last days from the bad news that was served by your people. Okay? So it says, sadly, many people of African First Peoples, Hispanic descent, are leaving the Christian faith or hardening their hearts towards receiving the gospel of Christ. What is the gospel? We need to understand, what is this gospel that you're talking about? We're going to show you what they mean by this gospel that they want us to believe on. Okay? And we're leaving Esau's Christianity. We're going towards our true identity and heritage as a people. Okay, according to, of course, Ezekiel 30, the dry bones that were in the valley is receiving, you know, its identity, its skin back, its sinews, locking one to another. And ultimately, with the true gospel of Yahawashi, according to the red letter, according to the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with Yahawashi being the chief cornerstone, they received the breath of life in them. Okay, and that's what's happening, and that's the reason why these guys are very scared, and they're upset at the rate at which this is occurring, and the zealousness at which this is occurring, how this is such an unstoppable force and movement. They've never seen anything like it. And he hasn't asked himself, Adam Coleman and Vocab Malone have not asked themselves, why are your people leaving Christianity? Why aren't you more concerned about them? Because you know that there's that the power of the scriptures is given unto the Israelites. And that's what deep down inside troubles you. You don't care that there's a great apostasy, quote unquote, falling away among your people from your Esau Christianity, right? E-man's Christianity. That they're going into Wicca, some of them becoming agnostic, atheists, they're becoming humanists, they're becoming Marxists, they're becoming socialists, they're becoming, you know, right-wing nationalists, fascists. They're running away from these particular things that you say are so great, but you're not doing anything to combat them. All you're doing is staying upon us, because you know that the power of the word is being made manifest among our people. All right? So, again, the perception that there is an Uncle Tomness to being a black-brown Christian has driven many people of the African, First Peoples, Hispanic descent into the arms of other belief systems that are thought to be more in line with their respective heritage. Well, there you have it. We actually have a heritage that the Lord gave us, okay? In fact, you know, and this is the reason why we're in the condition we're in. Chapter 17, okay, and verse 4, because he used the word in line with our heritage. Okay, so it says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine inheritance that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not, which is what happened to us. And see, they cannot say that that is not what happened. We did not know about this land. Okay, at the time of this prophecy. At the time of this prophecy, we didn't know about this. At least our forefathers that had lived during the time that came over here. Okay, so Solomon knew about the lands, but this type of information about where this was lost. And over time, as the northern kingdom came here, they didn't understand that this place was going to be the land of their captivity, and it was going to be given over to their enemies as their land, and they were going to be oppressed upon it, and that their brethren was also going to be put into captivity on ships and brought over to this land and we discontinued from our heritage. And that's the reason why we're under this punishment, and that's the reason why you're upset, right, that the Most High has given us our heritage back, which goes back again to the prophecy. Okay, Ezekiel 38, the valley of the dry bones. So we are going back to belief systems that are more in line with our respective heritage. Okay, perhaps we can call these belief systems alternative urban spiritualities. No, see, what happened is this alternative urban spirituality happened, all right, in the New Testament. Okay, and so what you don't realize, Vocab and Adam, is that this happened. This new urban alternative spirituality occurred, right, in the same manner back then. In fact, we'll get it, because when you go to Acts 17, let's see, go to Acts 17, you're going to see where this type of thing occurred. Okay, now when you go to cities, okay, because our people were in these cities, it's proven through the scriptures that we had Jews in all these places, including Athens, and Paul, also being a Jew, being of the tribe of Benjamin, also speaking Greek, went to the same city, all right, and also met up with other disciples and preached in this city. Okay, now when you go into it, it's where these urban realities that you're talking about, alternatives, some of the things you're going to bring up are the same things that were going on in places like Athens, okay, where our people also dwelled. And we're going to show you that not only was there our people there, but they were believing in other doctrines. And this is what you're scared of, is this particular thing where all these alternative urban religions become brought to the center, and then ultimately what comes out of it is the truth, which is the gospel. Okay, so this is Acts chapter 17 and verse 15. And they that conducted Paul brought him into Athens, and receiving a commandment unto Silas and Timotheus for to come to him with all speed, they departed. Now while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry. Okay, and who was he worried about? The Israelites, because again, the other nations was given the other gods to worship the moon and the stars and the animals, and to create, basically idols to worship. So who was there that he was worried about? Okay, if you remember, there was I did the Antiochus Epiphanes lesson, and I showed you how in the book of Maccabees, how they brought an old man from Athens to Jerusalem to convince the people to basically start worshiping the Greek gods. Okay, and what happened is over time you had people being to settle there. And if you look at the history of Athens, you can look up and find information about how a lot of Israelites, or people classified as Jews, ended up moving to Athens. Okay, and this is historically proven and documented. Okay, and we're going to get to it here. Now, when you go to verse 17, it says, therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews. Okay, showing you that there were Jews in Athens, man, and with devout men in the markets with them daily, in the market daily with them that met with him. Okay, so he was disputing with the Jews who were given over to idolatry, man. Okay, and a lot of times these people will come to the synagogues to dispute, to basically debate their points on their doctrines or their idolatry, so to speak, in the marketplace, okay, known as the agora. So just like we do when we go downtown, or brothers go to other cities downtown, you got people that come up with their various doctrines. Okay, just like you were saying here. In fact, let me go back to what you were saying. All right, you called it alternative urban spiritualities, and this is the same thing that was going on in Athens. Okay, so what you're doing is you're actually confirming a repeat of what was going on in the book of Acts. It says, then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics encountered him and said, and some said, What will this babbler say? Other some, he seemeth to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preacheth unto them Yahawashi and the resurrection. Okay, which is the same thing that we preach. Now it says, and they took him and brought him unto Areopagus, saying, may we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is? Okay, and so, I mean, it's plain right there. The same thing that you're talking about happened back then. Now, going on, it says, in time past, the Louis Farrakhan's of the world would say something along the lines, Christianity is the white man's religion, so you need to join the Nation of Islam, which that's not what we're doing. Okay, in fact, people are leaving the Nation of Islam back into their Israelite heritage. And that's something that you even have a problem with, because they're losing followers, they're losing people. They're not as zealous as the brothers out here. They're not putting up videos every day. They're not going out and teaching. All right, they're not breaking down scriptures. They're not doing that. Okay, they've become a thing of the past. Okay, they can't even keep up with the times anymore. Guys like Louis Farrakhan was fumbling and mismanaging the scriptures anyway. He don't know what he's talking about. He's past his time, man. He's like 80-something years old, and the fact is that he didn't really understand what was really going on, and neither did he teach the younger generation the gospel, man. And so that's just how it is. Neither are you teaching the gospel. You're trying to keep us on the plantation. You're upset that that our people can stand up to your face in great boldness and tell you that we're not going to follow you. And that hurts an Edomite to the core when you don't believe in his lies anymore. Bars. Now, everyone is saying that about their thing. The argument has become more nuanced. Objectors allege Christianity is a white man's religion, so black and brown peoples need to join the Nation of Islam. See, and he's throwing this ahead, because this is what he wants to do. He wants to peg all these particular groups together under one terroristic banner, okay? Black identity extremists and potential terroristic groups. This is what they're trying to do. Let's just keep it a buck, okay? Because the thing about it, all these things we're about to name are falling to the wayside to one movement, bro. He knows it. That's why he focuses primarily on one movement. And he wouldn't dare try and go and debate some of these other people, okay? Because they don't fit the narrative of what he's trying to push. So it says the Nation of Islam, the Hebrew Israelites, he's putting in quotations because he doesn't believe that we are, okay? That's why he's putting that in there. But it don't matter what he says. Scriptures is actually proving, and his words in this is proving our point. The Moorish scientists and the Egyptian Kemet spiritualists, the African spiritualists, or even turn atheists and cast away the whole white European pantheon, so the thinking goes, a concoction of apostasy, Afrocentrism, alternative religions, and a hint of Pan-Africanist ideology are often offered as an antidote for having betrayed one's African indigenous ancestors by taking the religion of the oppressor, Christianity. And that's what happened. And that's what hurts vocab so much, is that the tables have turned. We've been able to take the same book that his forefathers used to oppress us, and we've been able to flip it, and the Lord has been able to give us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to empower us. So it's made his Christianity null and void. It made what we believe in completely new movement that they weren't prepared to combat. Okay, and they're not going to be able to combat it, because this thing has caught on like wildfire, man. It's a bane to him, man. It's a daily bane to him. You cannot stop, right, what the Lord has in store for his people, man. And you're realizing who the most zealous people on the planet are. and you ain't got a big enough army, son, to stop it. All right? Hey, let me get that real quick, man. We've been talking about that Ezekiel. And so let's see what we got here. We'll just go down to verse 9. And then said he unto me, prophesy unto the wind, prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, thus saith the Lord God, come from the four winds, and breath, and breathe upon these slain that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Right? Israelites are an army, better yet a navy. You know? So we go on. So it says here, from what we see on the grounds, and the situation is often similar for the first people, sometimes to an even greater degree. And why wouldn't they? What's going on with the Native Americans, and from Canada to USA, massive oppression, stealing of lands, building of pipelines, destroying of water, destroying of natural habitation, the pushing away of the buffalo and animals. You think people after a while, they're going to be sick and tired of you, man. You know? They also get high rates of incarceration, high rates of suicide, high murder rates among police officers that killed at an even higher rate than so-called black people. When you go to these reservations, it's just basically a concentration camp. Okay? So why wouldn't they rebel against you? Even if they're choosing something else, it's a sign of the fact that they're tired of your lies. And they're studying the history, and they're realizing what you did to their people. Okay, and people are becoming more knowledgeable of what's going on, and they're realizing their camaraderie, all right, with their brethren of the Southern Kingdom, and that's what's happening. That's what pains you. It pains you to see that these three groups that you named, all right, that you tried to, you know, show hate towards, okay, because that's what you're really doing by not giving our people our true identity and not riding with us. All right, because if you was really a righteous person, right, if you believe that the heathen, the other nations can be saved, right, then act like a heathen that cares about the people of Israel, but you don't, because it's in you, okay, to hate the children of Israel. Okay, so going to continue on under the radar. It says the mainstream Christian apologist community has historically been largely unaware of these undercurrents in the black-brown community. Oh, so you say. So the mainstream Christians, all right, whose grandfathers and grandmothers were participated in lynchings, okay, in church clothes, they would leave and lynch. You're telling me the same people that every time they tell you the most segregated hour in the U.S. is on Sunday around noon. The same people that did not want so-called black people in their churches, all right? And when they even started to integrate some of these churches, like in the 70s, it always had a freaking Edomite, leader above it, because they didn't believe they would. It was called paternalism, by the way. That's the term that these Edomites have, that we can mix up the churches, but we're going to be the paternal authority over these so-called mixed churches. And that's the reason why you had the likes of Jim Jones that did what he was able to do, because that came out of that same mentality, all right, of paternalism when it came to these churches. Okay, and that's the reason, as these places expand, as you see places like, it's interesting how you can look at a church like T.D. Jakes' church, or another mainstream so-called black man, Creflo Dollar, how their churches are almost exclusively so-called black. And then when you look at like Joel Osteen's church, it's pretty much everybody's under there. It's so-called white Latinos and so-called black people, right? Because I live in Houston, I know. I've been there. You see it on TV. And this is the same thing that y'all been doing, okay? Y'all don't understand what our struggles are, because you are the reason why we are struggling. We are the ones praying to get out of oppression, and you're telling us that we need to forgive the oppressor, because the oppressor is you. And if we pray to our God the right way and call upon his name, right, in the Son's name, and ask for vengeance, for deliverance, you know the next step and what that means for you, because you have to suffer the things that your forefathers did and co-signed. All these mainstream Christian apologists, they were very much aware of what they were doing to our people. They just didn't give a damn. And this is the reason why ultimately the awakening has occurred. Okay? So it says Tom Skinner, Carl Ellis, and other pioneering voices tried to warn previous generations, but now the situation is reaching critical mass, and it's too late, man. It's too late. Like One Direction, it's too late to apologize. Okay? See, we would have healed Babylon, but it cannot be healed. Y'all had hundreds of years to do what y'all are trying to do now. And even what you're trying to do now is even the wrong way about doing things. So it's too late for you, buddy. It's not going to happen. There is no returning back for a lot of people. A lot of our people are not going to return back to you. Yeah, there's going to be some people that's going to ride with you because these guys are you know, these men and women that go towards you, they're defeated. You know that you got their minds. They're looking for love and affection from the oppressor. They're just hoping that you would just treat them a little bit better than your grandparents did or that your parents did. That's the reason why they run to you. All right, but the Lord says it was only going to be a remnant, but the rest was going to believe in the lies, okay, that are being pushed on this earth. So it says, while the American church has primarily concentrated on the most apparent threat to the Christian world view in the West, secularism and new atheism, which who's pushing that? Secularism and new atheism is pushed by you Edomites, okay? And that's where y'all's great apostasy is happening among your younger generation. While our younger generation is increasingly being more inquisitive and finding out more about their heritage. You know, we get younger people all the time, you know, wanting to, you know more, getting on our page, you know, contacting brothers, trying to learn more. Young sisters, and they're trying to get away from the madness that your people is pushing in the media and selling our people, all right, to destroy themselves. So it says this other challenge to the faith has flown under the radar. For that reason, it is our hope that this brief work would be as alarming as it is informative. Some questions and objections to the Christian faith are of particular concern to people of African First Peoples Hispanic descent. For the non-believer, this issue of reconciling their ethnic identity with Christian faith is many times an insurmountable barrier. Yeah, once you find out that you are a child of Jacob, we can't go back in our minds to merge ourselves, all right, to Cesare Borgia worship, man. Oh, and by the way, your other holidays, you know, your Christmases, all right, your Ishtar Day, okay, all the other stuff, you telling us that it was okay for us to eat pork, okay, all the madness that you push in your doctrine, we can't go back to that, man. We got to stay upon our identity, our heritage, man, like a great poet said, you know, I'm an Israelite, don't call me black no more. So, moving on, it says preventing hardened hearts from considering the gospel of Jesus Christ. Come on, man. You know dang well that we are hardening our foreheads against your doctrine, but our people are opening up their hearts to the true gospel of Yahawashi HaMashiach. And that's really what bothers you, okay? Because you see that our head has become an adamant stone against you. And you see how zealous and how strong in our convictions we are. And how it just continues to stay and how it continues to grow and how you meet more people and you see more people and you see more videos. You know, and it bothers you, man. It bothers you, bro. You're gonna get sleepless nights trying to battle against the Most High. You can't overthrow this. For many believers of African First Peoples Hispanic descent, the balancing act of holding on to the faith that was once delivered to all the saints, for all the saints, Jude 1 and 3, while being true to their ethnic heritage, is like having a pebble in their shoe, or at least a heavy weight on their back, okay, which you're actually lying, because see, for us, we're not, the ethnic heritage that you're referring to is this one that you're talking about. You know that our ethnic heritage is Israelites, okay, and that's why it's easy for us to get into the scriptures. It ain't a balancing act. It's only a balancing act if you don't know who you are. and you're still trying to hold on to an identity that your oppressor gave you, such as the black identity, so to speak. And a lot of times that's what makes people want to get away from the scriptures, because they have this black identity that was so-called given to them, or being told, you know, African or black, and which neither ones are real identities. And they hold on to that identity because they've been pushed on them for so many years. And by keeping that identity, they can't run back to so-called Christianity, all right, under the image of Esau. So they seek after other, you know, alternatives, such as, you know, these other religions, whether it be Kemet, whether it be, you know, some, you know, Canaanite deities that they start worshiping, or whether they start going into the Native American traditions, all right, that basically led to our people being conquered here. And then I see where you're coming from. But when you're talking about from a true ethnic identity standpoint of being an Israelite, we understand the faith that was once delivered to all the saints, because it tells you that the saints are the children of Israel. Okay? It ain't other nations. So it's very easy for us to understand. Now, continuing on, it says, it presents a nagging concern that remains with them as they walk with God. Yet Jesus tells us in Matthew 11:28, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Okay, now, who were the people that were who labored and that were heavy laden and that were needing to give rest? Okay, who are they? Who are those people? We are the people. Okay? Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's not burdensome for us to have our identity and understand that Yahawashi was speaking to us. Those who were heavy, that had labor and were heavy laden and needed rest, is us. You don't think we're tired of the oppression that we're dealing with? See, that's how inconsiderate and the lack of empathy that you have for our people in the hundreds of years of oppression that your people brought upon us. And you think that we're not tired of that? You don't think that we are the ones who first and foremost need a savior above all people? Because you're insincere, man. And all you want to do is drag us back into the plantation Christianity. That's all you want to do. So we're just going to go ahead and finish off this last paragraph. We are bringing attention to this to shed light on the fact that this identity issue among the people of African First Peoples Hispanic descent, it is a real obstacle to spreading the gospel, and it is presently causing many to turn away from Christ. Our hope is the Christian apologetic community will recognize there is a need to broaden the focus of our apologetic efforts. We are thankful to those in the larger apologetic community who are waking up to what is going on. We must continue to invest in providing an apologetic that neutralizes the deception of there being an incompatibility between, and neutralize the deception. No, we're no longer deceived. That's the problem. We've neutralized the deception through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahawashi, who's opened up our eyes and given us the light to see the lies that you've given in darkness. So now we know what we need to neutralize, and that's why we're able to dissect your arguments concerning this. Continuing on, the incompatibility between the African First Peoples Hispanic descent and being Christian. There is a real need in our cities, and through Christ, which is Cesare Borgia, okay, she's your Borgia is the one you're talking about when you say that. We are well able to meet that need. With that hope guiding our way, we seek to understand and where needed, refute the answers preferred by the conscious community in response to nagging questions about ethnic identity and Christianity. And see, he got the two writers, which he referred to earlier, who warned about this U.S. racial crisis and world evangelism. All right? And what's the racial crisis? Who started it? It was your people. From the time you stepped shores on the land, from the time of Christopher Columbus to now, your people are the reasons why this is happening. It backfired on you, hombre. and you can't get over it. Okay? Now, let me see when this was written. It says the U.S. Racial Crisis and World Evangelism. Okay? And I'm not going to play this an hour long. I don't know when this was actually written, but it looks like this might be an interesting video to watch. Now it says here, I'm going to read this transcript at the top. It says, an understanding of world evangelism and racism in our country must begin with an understanding of the history of racism. All right, which again, vocab does not address that. He skips over. He speaks loftily concerning oppression. To understand why we are in the middle of a revolution in our time, to come to grips with what the Black Revolution is all about, and to understand what the nature of racism is, or racism in our society is, I must take you back approximately 350 years to when the early ships landed in this country in approximately 1619. Boy, oh boy, I think some of you brothers know the scripture about that 350 years. So it sounds like this was actually written in 1969. And you know what's so beautiful about that? Okay, is the awakening came around that same time. Okay, when the dead bodies begin to, you know, begin to get life. Okay, and some people will say, you know, you got Beacon's Rebellion. You know, you got things like that. You can say like Beacon's Rebellion. They'll say, oh, 350 years from that time or whatever. But 1619 or whether you believe it's 1660 or whatever it is, 350 years is actually kind of prophesied in the scriptures. Okay, now I'm gonna just kind of briefly touch it. So let's see. All right. So we're going to go to Revelation 11. And we'll start at verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Okay, because our Lord was crucified in the Roman Empire. Okay, he was crucified under the authority of Rome. Okay, which we're in the modern day Rome today. Sodom and Egypt refers to the state of the people here. Okay, as we know about the alphabet community and how pronounced that is. Okay, and what is basically being promoted, you know, among our people. Okay, the movements are actually promoting exactly that. And Egypt, referring to our captivity, as you know, on the back of the dollar, you see the Pyramid of Egypt. Okay, which denotes our captivity. Okay, you got in the Washington Monument the obelisks. Okay, the Egyptian obelisks there. Okay, these are all the shadow of Egypt. Verse 9, and they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3.5 days. Okay, 350 years, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. Okay. And just like we were reading, you know, in Ezekiel 37, it says, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets, right, meaning Israel and Judah, the candlesticks that were before the throne, tormented them that dwelled on the earth. And after these 3.5 days, the spirit of life from the Lord Yahweh entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and the great fear fell upon them which saw them. And that's vocab, man. He is under great fear. Okay, that's why him and Adam Coleman wrote this. There's a great fear upon this. They said this is a critical mass. They're urging the apologetics community to band together and try and get us back into plantation Christianity. All right, that's what they're trying to do. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys go as far as even to bring, you know, Edomite Christian women that probably have a background in being cheerleaders and beauty pageant contestants and, you know, bikini models and stuff, to try and swoo some of these people out here, man. There's no telling. what's going to happen next. So it's very clear that this right here is referring back to 1969 because of the 350 years since 1619, which is beautiful, because that's when a lot of this information started coming out slowly but surely, and the identity, all right, the skin started to come upon the bones, all right, and the sinews begin to lock in. It was a process up until now, and now with the true understanding of the gospel, being baptized in the name of Yahawashi for the remission of sins, receiving of the Holy Spirit, being the way to get into the kingdom. That is the starting point and path for one's salvation, okay, according to the scriptures. So as we see here, they go into the history of this. This is a pretty long read, but maybe I might go to it another time. This guy looks like he really put together a good amount of history, and it looks like, you know, vocab referenced this because he must have read this and seen that how true the stuff is. So I might read through it if it's something important. I may do a lesson on it concerning this particular thing. I may even listen to the video or the audio and see if there's any nuggets in there that may be of any importance. Now I'm gonna go back. Let's click on this other link, and this is concerning the Carl guy that he was referring to, okay, who also warned about it as well. Okay, so yeah, Carl Ellis, and he wrote this in 2016, which I don't know, by that time, I mean, this whole movement has been full-fledged, you know, pretty much, you know, was peaking, or was reaching towards its peak at that point, meaning that it was 2016 was a big time year in terms of like just the amount of groups that were doing, putting out videos and doing a lot of work out there trying to reach the lost, okay, according to, you know, their level of knowledge nonetheless. But, you know, we understand that all things are, you know, they're done for a reason. So this guy, Dr. Carl Ellis, talked about the same exact issue. Okay, some things I've learned along the way. And this is a Black Evangelicals Association, which they're losing the masses. Because the thing about it, these pastors were nothing but Stevens on a plantation, like Django, that were overlooking to see which Negro was going to rebel against Esau, against Massa. And that's what they were doing. They were trying to keep you your mind entertained by their music, all right, by their gospel music, whether it was rap or singing. And then they try to get you into the whole prosperity gospel, all right, into fancy preaching and eloquent speeches done by these pastors. And they were putting on a show. They were entertaining the people. And then what happened is a generation came, all right, that came over the last, you know, as you can say, couple of decades, a younger generation that was able to get exposed to more information because of social media, because of the internet. And they're able to compare and say, hold on, what these guys are saying about what I grew up in and what my parents believed in and what this pastor is talking about, I'm seeing that this is a lie. And I'm seeing that they are actually keeping me in bondage to this understanding, and it's not working. And that's why they're leaving. And so it's hurting a lot of these churches because they cannot keep these young folk, because these young folk are coming into questions about dietary law, about, you know, Passover, Sabbaths, the name of the Lord, our identity, and they can't handle it. Okay? They can't handle it, man. So it says guiding principles of protests. Let me see. There's power and transcendent reference point, the moral high ground. And like I said, these pastors, man, these guys are charlatans, man. A lot of these pastors, some of them are sincere, but a lot of them are charlatans, man. They're all about the bucks, the dollar bills, y'all. They're all about that, man. The 501c3. You can't reconcile us to the oppressor. Okay, we don't want to be with him. We don't want to deal with them no more, okay? So let me go into this, okay? Because let's go into the origin of some of this. Rubbing our hands together like Birdman, all right, to really get into the exposure, all right, of what really happened. Now, when you go into slavery and concerning religion in the United States, it tells you here, prior to the American Revolution, masters and revivalists spread Christianity to slave communities, supported by the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel. Okay, now you had these people that were pushing this particular movement about pushing the gospel to the slaves. Okay, now in the event, what did they ultimately end up doing? They ended up creating another Bible, right, for our people, known as the Slave Bible. Okay, we've actually talked about it on the block. If you go to YouTube, simply just type in Slave Bible. I don't want to prolong this as long as it's already been and you can look it up. Okay, and that's what they were doing. They were selecting in the plantation who was going to be a so-called slave that they were going to teach, allow to read, teach him a doctrine, and then what he would do is he would go out and teach the slaves how to basically stay in subservient role and non-rebellion state for Massa, because Massa didn't want no more rebellions. He didn't want no more of that. And that's what happened with Nat Turner. Nat Turner was one of these people who they were trying to coon up, but he was reading them scriptures and he saw the light, and then he formed a rebellion. Okay, and ultimately that's what they're scared of. They're scared of that Bible. Just like if you watch the video on the Slave Bible, they took out different scriptures and different stories, so that way it wouldn't inspire our people to have more of a rebellious attitude towards these Edomites. And that's the reason why our people are so docile and forgive this guy every day. This guy will slaughter your family. This guy will lynch you. This guy will call you on a word. The cop will shoot you and kill you. And you go just like both from John and Dallas, his brother going up hugging the Edomite woman that killed him when he was in his own apartment. That comes from this particular time period. That's the doctrine where it started from. And that's what we're running away from. But Vocab and Adam Coleman, they want us to get back to that mentality. This is the ideal standpoint. This is what the ministry that they came out of. Okay, they came out of the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel to the slaves, so to speak. In the First Great Awakening of the mid-18th century, which would have been the middle of the 1700s, Baptists and Methodists from New England preached a message against slavery, encouraged masters to free their slaves, converted both slaves and freebacks, and gave them an active roles in the congregations. Now, one of the reasons why they were doing this is because there was something called the Industrial Revolution that was occurring. Okay, and what they believed is that you could not have a true industrial revolution if you had people in slavery. This was not really being done as for moral reasons. Okay, because ultimately these same people turned their backs upon these so-called slaves and free blacks. Okay, when in their time of need. Okay, you have various riots and things that happened during those times in which our people were exposed. But these were the two main, denominations that our people actually in Babylon ended up being. In fact, you have the African First Methodist Church. I believe that's out there in South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. That was where Denmark Vesey was actually from, or at that particular church, which is where the massacre occurred. That Edomite killing all those Jakes that were worshiping Jezreel, unfortunately, and he killed them in that same place, and that was a Methodist church. Same in the like way token, you got the Baptists. You know, you got Baptist churches all through the South where Esau burned them down, started fires, lynched Jakes out of it. So these Edomites, they didn't even protect them, bro. In the long run, they didn't. Look, fast forward 200 years from that time. What did the Baptists and Methodists do? They didn't protect them. They didn't protect our people. So these people, again, this is the empty stories and rhetoric that Vocab Malone and Adam Coleman, they can't answer to, man, because they cannot say anything because they did nothing. And this is one of the reasons why you can't trust these people. Okay? Because like the scripture says, an enemy cannot be hidden in adversity, man. You're going to know when you're in adversity who your enemy is. Okay? So, as you go on, it says the first independent black congregations were started in the South before the Revolution in South Carolina and Georgia. Over the decades, and with the growth of slavery throughout the South, Baptist and Methodist ministers gradually changed their messages to accommodate the institution. After 1830, white Southerners argued for the compatibility of Christianity and slavery. And see, this is the reason. This is interesting because Vocab was arguing that we were struggling with the identity of Christianity and our ethnic identity. And then our ethnic identity essentially was becoming a stumbling block for us, was making us harden our hearts from receiving Christianity. Essentially what vocab is trying to say is that he wants us to let go of our identity as Israelites in order to embrace a new world order doctrine in which all nations can be saved. And also in the same token, we also have this forgiving heart towards the mistakes and errors of his people, the transgressions of his people. Okay? And see, back then, they talked about the compatibility between Christianity and slavery, meaning that they wanted to know how well it fit together. Okay? So they were looking into this and they were trying to find out ways for them to still maintain it. Okay? So it says, with a multitude of both Old and New Testament citations, which ultimately they started taking out, again, reference slave Bible whenever you have time, they promoted Christianity as encouraging better treatment of slaves and argue for a paternalistic approach. And paternalistic approach means that they have oversight, okay? Meaning that they are the ones that you go to for answers. Meaning that you don't have your people that are set up above to teach. You basically have an oversight where you have an Edomite determining the doctrine that you're going to be teaching, all right, or learning, so to speak, okay? And all the while under the guise of we are better Christians. And this is what caused this particular thing that I'm reading right here. When you look at some of these movies like 12 Years a Slave and other movies, you will see that what they did is they started to have it to where our people did not work on the plantation on Sundays, where they had Sunday worship. And that was one of the things that they instituted in order to what? It was a form of brainwashing, because what they did is they used that Sunday worship as a way to give slaves a supposed freedom. But these particular things were just nothing more than a way to brainwash our people at these particular, church services, dancing, playing music. This is when when our people felt like they were having fun, because they were allowed to now play their music and sing the praises of Cesare Borgia, of Jesus Christ Superstar, so to speak. That's why it became a big deal, right, to a lot of our people. Even unto this day, that tradition is still holding in that same vein. And all that stuff was just to design to make our people more docile. They found a way to flip Christianity and say, if we can give them one day, instead of working them every day, we're going to give them one day where they're going to be able to praise and worship under our paternalistic approach or oversight. Okay? And that's where that came into play. Now it says in the 1840s and 1850s, the issue of accepting slavery split the nation's largest religion denomination, the Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian churches, into separate northern and southern organizations as Methodist Episcopal Church South and Southern Baptist Convention and Presbyterian Church in the Confederate States of America. Now, why was this happening? The reason why you see that issue after 1830, because when you go again into the British colonies, which again at this point America was no longer a British colony, but speaking of places like in South America or Central America and the Caribbean that were former British colonies, what they were doing was they were freeing our people that were in chattel slavery over there during the decade of the 1830s. Slavery was abolished in places like Jamaica. So there was what was happening was the influence of industrialization that caused the banishment of that in order to prepare for the industrial world that was happening at that time. And that's the reason why the British did that. They wanted to switch up the way that they were doing things because things were changing at that time. So what happened is those same messages came to these people that were running these churches in Babylon. And what they did is they were using their religion as a way to stop or to say, we don't want slavery no more. It needs to be done away with. They were just using a different angle approach to try and end it, which ultimately led to the Civil War, okay, which was really a battle over basically the right to slavery, because that's what they see. The Edomites use things like state rights and things like that, but really it was about the government wanting to industrialize the country, and you cannot fully do that if you have a population that you're enslaving who's eventually going to rebel. and could ultimately destroy your nation. Okay, because that's ultimately what they were worried about, is that if you keep enslaving these people and they keep growing and growing and they continue to go into this population, eventually, if you don't let them go and if you don't allow them to be a part of the Industrial Revolution, and we can tax them, okay, we can find a way to control them still through all these different laws, through the 13th Amendment, okay, which allows you to be still put into slavery, or, you know, if you commit or convicted of a crime, right, which many were accused falsely. That's the reason why they did that. So now, what we're going to do, we're going to go down. We're going to go ahead and skip, okay, because this is, okay, actually, you know what, let me read this, because this actually is pertaining to what we're talking about still. It says, Southern slaves generally attended their masters' white churches, where they often outnumbered the white congregants. They were usually permitted to sit only in the back or in the balcony. Okay, so this is how this is how your forefathers treated them. Your fellow Christian brothers, right? Vocab and Adam, and all you apologetics, okay, and you people among them that hate their own people and want to stay with them. This is what they were doing. Has there been apologies? Has there been monetary retribution for this? Has there been a nationwide apology letter sent to our people over this? Nope. You Edomites say, well, that was in the time of my forefathers. You know, I wasn't alive. But the after effects is here, and that's the reason why you're scrambling to keep us away from this word, and it's not going to happen, man. The Most High is turning up the zeal and the fire within His people, man. It's like it's like we're turning into robots of the Most High for this thing, man. So it says they listened to white preachers, which they still do to this day, who emphasize the obligation of slaves to keep in their place and acknowledge the slave's identity as both person and property. See, this is what vocab wants. You want us to basically acknowledge you as master, in our identity to be based off of what you say our identity is, not us being Israelites. Okay, when the Lord said that He is the one that is our master, He is our owner. Okay, preachers target the master's responsibility and the concept of appropriate paternal treatment. Okay, that's that whole pater, which means father. Okay, that's what they mean, that fatherly role. Okay, just like you have the Pope, which Pope means father. Using Christianity to improve the conditions for slaves and treat them justly and fairly, which they can't do because they don't believe in justice. This includes masters having self-control, not disciplining under anger, not threatening, and ultimately fostering Christianity among their slaves by example. Okay, let's go to that Colossians chapter 4 that they referred to. Okay, let's see what it says, 4:1. So what they're saying is here, masters, give unto your servants that which is just and equal. Okay, that's what they were talking about, knowing that ye also have a master in heaven. Okay, so is that what they were doing? I think not. Okay, and there's proof of that these Edomites were mistreating our people still. Okay, it says slaves also created their own religious observations, meeting alone without the supervision of their white masters or ministers. It says the larger plantations with groups of slaves numbering 20 or more tended to be centers of nighttime meetings of one or many slave populations. These congregations revolve around a singular preacher, often illiterate with limited knowledge of theology, who was marked by his personal piety and ability to foster a spiritual environment. So they would choose certain coon Negroes, charismatic Negroes that were down with Massa and that truly believed, right, in Jesus Christ, right, the Edomite Christ, Serapis Christus, and they would use them to basically recite words because they were illiterate, but they could probably put together a good speech and praise and worship. And that's how they kept our people bamboozled. And see, this is the same thing they do. That's why the Esau likes what you call, you know, the boule. They're handpicked among our people that they raise up to put before you as leaders. This is a source. This is a method of control. Okay. It is a proxy. They basically, they bring up a sock puppet that speaks upon on their behalf, including the hope for deliverance from slavery by their own exodus. One lasting influence of these secret congregations is the African American spiritual. Okay? And so when you go also into this, because also on the same token, you had people like Nat Turner. Okay, so Nat Turner would have been the one who would have been talking about the Exodus. Okay, if he had access to the actual Bible, because in the slave Bible, they removed the story, if I'm not mistaken, of the Exodus. So that way, our people wouldn't have an idea that there is a higher power that can come and deliver them from the captivity. They would have been able to identify themselves, all right, with the Israelites, their forefathers, in the scriptures, if they hadn't been able to get the whole book of Exodus. Okay. So we're going to go on. This is a kind of a you know, type of lesson. So bear with me. Now, this is from thehistory.com. This is referring to the Native American genocide. Okay. Now, this is one of the reasons why. This is one of the reasons why these Edomites have no lot or say on what we should do in regards to worship and in regards to the scriptures, because of the atrocities that they did. Now, this right here, it says, when Native Americans were slaughtered in the name of civilization, which really in the name of Christianity, because it was the so-called Judeo-Christian belief system that our people needed to be civilized by them under their false understanding of the scriptures. And that's what justified to them slaughtering. Now, there's a guy like Vocab Malone. Does he not understand that those people that he called first peoples understand this history and understand how that history is very much tied to Christianity? Okay? So it says their skin was dark, their language was foreign, and their world views and spiritual beliefs were beyond most white men's comprehension. Okay? Because it was. Because some of them, as the oppression was occurring, they begin to understand that what was happening was a spiritual event. There's a saying about the great spirit that was going to come and take down their oppressors and redeem them. This is one of the things that was being said towards the latter years of the late 1800s, as Gad, all right, the North American Indians, was overcome by a troop, all right, which would be known as the cavalry. And what they did under, I think it was General Custer, they fought. He had the Battle of Wounded Knee. They began to understand that this was all spiritual, and that ultimately they were going to overcome at the last. You know, very deep story concerning that, man. And we're in that time, and that's the reason why you're seeing these so-called first peoples and Native Americans. They're beginning to get into this truth, man. I see them online, you know, and they're in various groups. They follow different brothers, you know, and they're believing and they're understanding what happened to our people and how it's going to be turned around. Okay. And when you go through this, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it is very long, but you see how, you know, they got the depiction of, you know, of our brethren who were looking and seeing the boat coming afar off. Okay, so it says a group of Native Americans looking at a sailing ship in the bay below them. And it goes into here how many of them were killed. Okay, I'm going to just read this part. The rest of it is very long. But, you know, you can definitely check that out. It says, from the time Europeans arrived on the American shores, the frontier. These were Christians, by the way, okay, that arrived. They were not atheists. They were not into secularism, okay. They were Christians, okay, from Europe. The edge territory between white man's civilization and the untamed natural world became a shared space of vast clashing differences that led the United States government to authorize 1,500 wars, attacks, and raids on Indians, the most of any country in the world against its indigenous people. And you got clowns out here saying that these are not our people. You got clowns out here saying that they did not fall under the curses. Can't with you guys, man. I can't with you guys, man. By the close of the Indian Wars in the late 19th century, fewer than 238,000 indigenous people remained. And this is based on the ones that were autonomous communities that were away from the rest of the population. Because we do know that some of them did move into cities in various places, became assimilated with the people that were classified as Negro, and they mingled amongst, the Southern Kingdom, so to speak. Okay, and became known as colored people. Okay, that's one of the reasons why they created that colored category after slavery, is because of the fact that there was a group of intermingling that was going on, and the whole, the civilized tribes thing kind of started to fall apart after the defeat in the Civil War, when the Confederacy lost. And as we do know, they were being headed by Edomites, okay, by these $5 Indians that were basically, getting them to fight in these wars. And over time, as things became industrialized, it was what you call urbanization, which happens under an industrial revolution. You started having people moving into these different towns and cities. Therefore, they were more than 238,000, but these were the ones that were autonomously left. Nonetheless, we can say that they killed so many, even more than this. This is actually an underestimate. It says a sharp decline from the estimated 5 million to 15 million living in North America when Columbus arrived in 1492. And you got to remember, they killed people that were born in later generations, so they killed way more than that. And there's actually a professor that talked about how many people were possibly killed in North America alone, how much more the rest of Latin America and the islands. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go into this right here. This is from Wikipedia, the genocide of indigenous people, colonization and genocide in the Americas, right? So this particular section is indigenous people of the Americas to basically the pre-Columbian era, I guess, all the way to 1948, which would have been when these these Amalekites went and took our land. Isn't that interesting? And why do you think that is? We're going to read it, them trying to do an okey-doke thing over here. So it says, historians and scholars whose work has examined this history in the context of genocide have included historian David Stannard and anthropologist demographer Russell Thornton, as well as scholar activists such as Vine Deloria Jr., Russell Means, and Ward Churchill. Stannard compares the events of the colonization in the Americas with the definition of genocide in the 1948 UN Convention, and writes that, in the light of the UN language, even putting aside some of the looser constructions, it is impossible to know what transpired in the Americas during the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, and not to conclude that it was genocide. And who was committing this genocide? You Edomite Christians. Vocab, Adam, that was who was committing it. That's why it would make sense that they wouldn't want to be down with your religion anymore, man. Come on. Thornton describes as genocide the impact of warfare, violence, and massacres, many of which had the effects of wiping out entire ethnic groups. Political science Gunter Louis says that even if to 90% of the reduction in the Indian population was a result of the disease, that leaves a sizable death toll caused by mistreatment and violence. Native American Studies professor Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz says, proponents of the default position emphasize attrition by disease despite other causes equally deadly, if not more so. In doing so, they refuse to accept that colonization of America was genocidal by plan, not simply the tragic fate of population lacking immunity to disease. Come on. And this is what these Edomites do. You talk to them like, well, look, it was disease that wiped them out. Not actually admitting that constant warfare for 400 years was one of the reasons why the population got decimated. Come on. By 1900, the indigenous population in the Americas declined by more than 80% and by as much as 98% in some areas. And this is true because if you look up every city, every state, every county, and you look up their history, you're going to find that they had a group of Native Americans that were here in these places. Where did they go? Many of them were massacred. Some of them ended up having to, were forced to assimilate. Some of them ended up leaving and moving to other places. Some of them ended up intermingling and becoming part of the quote-unquote colored community. And depending on the places, of course, depending on the cities and counties and areas, if they had populations, you got places. I'll give you an example. You got a place called Lumberton County out in North Carolina, where some of them did that. Okay, they're known as the Lumbee people. Okay, and a lot of them are completely, utterly bugged out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them have a complex about them that's really a mess. My sister knows about them because she went to school out there, and nonetheless, you know, a lot of them are very bugged out, to say the least, man. And that's what happens when you have the captivity that we've been in, man. Our people have been smoked with madness, man, because we don't know who our power is, and we don't know what's really going on and why we're going through the things we're going through. And when those type of things are happening to people, they're going to become, you know, they're going to have issues, man. They're going to have issues. So it says here, the effects of disease such as smallpox, measles, and cholera during the first century of colonialism contributed greatly to the death toll, which this is biological warfare, by the way. While violence, displacement, and warfare by colonizers against the Indians contributed to the death toll in subsequent centuries. And this is very true, because what you know is that they had what was called Western expansion. And as these Edomites were expanding westward, they were going and killing and massacring under the authority of the government, men like Andrew Jackson, who was also known as the Indian Killer. They were killing and massacring these wholesale communities and then giving the lands to their brethren, the Edomites, all right, fellow Christians. Okay? Now, this is another one. It says, as detailed in American philosophy from the Battle of Wounded Knee to present, it is also apparent that the shared history of the hemisphere is one framed by the dual tragedies of genocide and slavery. Okay? Genocide and slavery. Now, guess what? At least on the land, the whole genocide issue, in fact, we're going to have to get to that, because this proves that the stuff that happened to us shows that we're kin, man. We suffered these things as a people together, historically. Okay, especially in the latter days. So I'm going to go back here. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 33. Okay, thus saith Yahweh, Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and they that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Okay? And that's what they've done, man. They haven't let us go. They putting us in prison houses. They're putting us in projects. They're putting us under the authority of the state through this false social work. They're putting us in these houses, you know, these foster homes, right? With rapacious, all right, uncouth, evil Edomites. They're refusing to let us go. We've done stories on this about the whole adoption scam and how it exploits our people. Okay? So as we go on, both of which of the legacy of the European invasions of the past 500 years. So this is an invasion that occurred, okay? Indigenous people, north and south, were displaced, died of disease, and were killed by Europeans, Christians, Edomite Christians, okay? The Edomite Christian invasions, killed by Edomite Christians through slavery, rape, and war. In 1491, about 145 million people lived in the Western Hemisphere. By 1691, which was 200 years later, the population of the indigenous Americans had declined by 90 to 95%, or by around 130 million, meaning that they lost about 130 million according to the estimates. Okay, so meaning that they were left with about 15 million by 1691. So you got to understand how that's a great evil. That's a great evil, bro. You can't even compare a group of people that went through that. You can't. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me right now, bro? These clowns out here talking about that they're not of the people. You got these Negroites that have 4 or 5 different doctrines of who the natives are. You either say that they're this other nation or that nation, or you call them mongrels. You call them everything else but the children of Israel because you don't know any better. Let me get that verse. We're just going to go straight to the point. Verse 12. And he hath confirmed his word which he spake against us. All right, so Daniel 9 and 12. That he spake against us and against our judges that judged us by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven hath not been done as has been done upon Jerusalem. You can't even find another group of people on the planet that this happened to. You can't. You can't find it, bro. When these Edomites say, oh, same thing happened to us. Ask them when. Ask them when, who, what, where, and why. They can't answer it, man. This is why the vengeance that the Lord is going to give and bring upon our oppressors is going to be like something that's nothing that's ever seen before. Because this particular type of atrocity that occurred, you tried to wipe out the seed of Israel, and you attempted to do so. If you could, you would have. And it was only the Lord that had basically had mercy upon us and held back your hands from destroying us utterly. If you could have done so, you would have. That's how much these Edomites hate us. You can't even make this stuff up, man. You really can't. This is evil, man. This is very, very evil. This is Obadiah, verse 10. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. The forced conversions as well. Colonial Americas. During the European colonization of the Americas, forced conversion of the continent's indigenous, non-Christian population was common, especially in South America and Mesoamerica, okay, which is basically Central America, where the conquest of the large indigenous polities like the Inca and Aztec empires placed colonizers in control of large non-Christian populations. According to some South American leaders and indigenous peoples, there were cases among native populations of conversions under the threat of violence. Can you imagine if Yahawashi told the disciples that they needed to use the threat of violence to convert people? This shows, again, that y'all are not the real Christians. This is the problem that you guys don't understand, the street apologetics team. You're not the real Christians. Because if y'all were real Christians, you would not need to do a forced conversion under the threat of violence. Using violence as a means to convert villages and populations because they killed somebody that didn't bow down to your idol that you fashioned with your own hands. This is often because they were compelled after being conquered. Where was that? Where was that in the book of Acts? Where were the apostles? Where were the disciples using violence and conquering people to convert people? in terms of spreading the gospel. Because this is what we're in. We're in spreading the gospel time right now. All right? We're in fishing season. Don't you Edomites have in the back of your trucks the little fish and signifying that you're a Christian? But here it is. You get to this land, you slaughter the people, and then the ones that are remaining, you try and force them with the threat of violence, like Islamic jihad, like the jihadists y'all are, because really that's what y'all are. There's nothing more than jihadists, bloodthirsty creatures that have no remorse, no empathy for the people that you did this to. And you have the audacity to try and create this post talking about you need to help our people get back into the plantation mentality with you. The Most High has something very special for you people, man. Very special. And that the Catholic Church cooperated with the civil authority to achieve this end. So not only did the individuals that came here did it, but they also received help from the Vatican, all right, from the various organizations that they ran as well. Because remember, this is South America where they spread Catholicism, because this was conquered by the Spanish and Portuguese primarily. So the authorities that gave the British colonies, they had their own version because they were so-called Protestant. So they did the same thing as well. So they're not without any blame also. We have yet to see an apology. This is what they did, man. This is their idea of conversion, forcing you, right, to worship this image. This is forced immigration and enslavement of the Americas. And then they go into how they passed laws and said that they were not going to have as bad of an influence over the natives. You know, I'll probably do a separate thing on this because there's actually some good information. But this is concerning, again, European colonization, okay, or Edomite colonization is like we like to call it, okay, of the Americas. And then they go into this whole disease thing, but we know that most of what happened was done through violence as well, okay? So, in fact, we'll go ahead and go down and just get get this right here. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 12. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. That's what y'all did. By blood, by murder, by rape, you established the town. Also by iniquity, man. You lied on the scriptures. Okay, you remove words out of the scriptures. Okay, multiple times. Y'all historically documented this. You removed the Apocrypha around the 1830s out of the Bible. You created also the slave Bible to remove more verses, more chapters, more books. Then you went and created new translations, and then you're coming to us telling us that we need to follow you. Come on, man. Let's go ahead and skip down real quick to verse 15. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and that polluteth thy bottle to him, that putteth thy bottle to him. And this is what you did. Okay? Everybody knows how the natives were actually overtaken in part through them being given alcohol, right? To basically make them vulnerable. You concocted a brew that was gonna make them incoherent to what was really going on around them, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Okay, thou art filled with shame for glory. Okay, you're ashamed because your glory was nothing but robbery, nothing but murder, nothing but rape, and full of lies. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered, meaning let's reveal to you that you're really a heathen. Okay, that you're really the one that's the beast that needs to be civilized. The cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. For the violence of Lebanon shall cover thee, and the spoil of beasts, which made them afraid because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land of the city, and of all that dwell therein. What profiteth the graven image that maketh thereof hath given it, the molten image, and a teacher of lies, that the maker of the work trusteth therein to make dumb idols. This is what y'all do, man. Woe unto him that saith to the wood, awake, to the dumb stone, arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is laid over with the gold and silver, and there is no breath at all in the midst of it. And that's what you did. You created these idols, these images, okay, that you made our people bow down to and say, look at this. Okay, like this one right here, of wood and stone. This is the so-called Christ as Redeemer that was made out there in Brazil. Okay, and here it is. This is the infamous. When people go to Brazil, they go and try and see this out there in Rio. Look at all these people over here looking at this, looking at this fugitive. And this is who what you did. You created this for people to worship, man. This is Christianity right here, dude. This is Christianity. This is Edom's Christianity. Okay? You can't tell it ain't. This is another one. Compulsory conversion of Indian by Jesuit missionaries. Look at this. They got swords. They got their muskets, their rifles, and under the threat of violence, they're saying, if you worship this, okay, these are Masons, bro. They understood what they were doing. These are Satanists. Under this authority, this is what they did. Under the threat of violence. This is the image, man. This is what y'all did. This wood you say bow down to. The maker that made it, man. And then what they do is they say, look, this is the Edomite liberal. After you done fell to violence, they tell you not to retaliate and to bow down, and that this is good cop, bad cop right here. Okay? They're presenting these are the saviors, these ones in the red. Okay? They're the ones that's saving them from the onslaught of slaughter because they bowed down to Cesare. This is all psychological, spiritual warfare at a high level that you're witnessing in this picture. Just so you know. This is Deuteronomy 28:64. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other. Unto the other is referring also to the Americas. Because when this prophecy came about, we weren't over there. This is where we were scattered to, bro. A lot of our people were scattered to this year, and this is where a lot of atrocities occurred. Okay, and those people that settled over here were the Northern Kingdom, man. That was the bulk of the Northern Kingdom that left the Middle East, what is now known as the Middle East, over here. Yes, there was a remnant over there that stayed in the land. Yes, there was a remnant that went down with Benjamin, Judah, and Levi into Africa or into Europe. But the counsel and the prophecies all fit exactly what's going on and what we've read so far. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Let's go back. Wood, stone. Can't get around that vocab. Okay, this is the image that y'all promoted. Okay, this is the man. This is the false image that y'all made. Okay, it's even only until recently that you started seeing people trying to make images to combat this. that would have been more resembled our Savior. So let's go ahead and finish this off. This is Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 17. And the light of Israel shall be for fire, and his Holy One for a flame. And it shall burn and devour his thorns and his briars in one day, and shall consume the glory of his forest, and of his fruitful field, both soul and body. And they shall be as when a standard bearer fainted. And the rest of the trees of his forest shall be few, that a child might write them. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant, okay, those of that don't believe in you, that believe in the gospel of our Lord and Savior Yahawashi HaMashiach, that the remnant of Israel and such as escape of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them. Okay, that includes these Edomites that did these atrocities to us and these other nations. Okay, but shall stay upon Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. So hopefully this is edifying. And again, I'd like to give all praises and glory to Yahweh Ba'asham Yahawashi. Peace, mercy, and blessings to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, that hearing the truth that shall make them free when Yahawashi shall deliver his elect. Shalom.